Today I want to talk about a discovery, a very important archaeological discovery that was made recently regarding the tomb of Jesus and the credibility of the claim that it is indeed located in what is now the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Old Jerusalem. Most of you know that Helena, the mother of the Emperor Constantine, was entrusted in the early 4th century around 326 to 328 with the task of traveling to the Holy Land in order to identify the sites of Jesus' crucifixion and burial, as well as other Christian holy places. As the emperor's mother, she had full imperial authority and access to everything. This certainly made things much easier. Now, earlier, after the Jewish revolt in the year 66 AD, the Roman general Titus, who was son of the Emperor Vespasian, was ordered to crush the rebellion. And in AD 70, Jerusalem was besieged and the temple was destroyed. To erase Jewish and Christian culture, the Romans systematically built pagan shrines over revered sites. So, the place believed to be Jesus' tomb and crucifixion, where early Christians already had been visiting, was buried beneath a platform, and a shrine to Venus was made on top of it. Ironically, this act of suppression preserved the site like a time capsule, and when Helena arrived centuries later, she ordered the demolition of the pagan shrine, and beneath it, according to tradition, she uncovered the location of Golgotha, the tomb of Christ, and even the 3 crosses described in the Gospels. From that moment in the 4th century, Christians regarded the Church of the Holy Sepulchre as the authentic location of the death and resurrection of Jesus. For over 1,600 years, it has been the focal point of Christian pilgrimage. But as if tradition and testimony weren't enough, a new discovery made in 2025 provides further archaeological evidence that this is indeed the location, that this location matches the description given in the Gospels. Excavations conducted from 2022 to 2025, led by Professor Francesca Romana Stasolla of the Sapienza University of Rome, together with the Israel Antiques Authority and 3 religious custodians of the site. One is the Orthodox Patriarch, one is the Franciscan Custody, and the Armenian Patriarchate. They uncovered 2,000-year-old grape pips. These are seeds. They discovered grape pips, olive stones, and pollen beneath the church floor of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Why is this discovery important? Well, in 2025, Professor Stasolla's team, a group of Italian archaeologists supported by botanists and geologists, recovered botanical remains clearly belonging to grapevines and olive trees sealed in undisturbed layers of soil more than 6 meters below the surface. And in the Gospel of John, we're told that now in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb in which no one had yet been laid. For centuries, skeptics have asked if this was symbolic language or whether there was an actual cultivated garden that once stood there. Now you might think, seed and pollen, wouldn't that be everywhere? This is simply a coincidence. Shouldn't there also be other plants mixed in there as well? But that is really the remarkable part of this discovery. These were not just random traces of vegetation blown in by the wind. The samples showed a concentration of grape and olive remains preserved in a well-defined strata, exactly the pattern you'd expect from deliberate cultivation and not chance. And importantly, the word used in John's Gospel in the Greek is the Greek term kēpos, which does not mean simply a decorative flower patch. In the biblical and 1st century context, kēpos meant a productive garden, an orchard, a vineyard, an olive grove. In Latin, Jerome translates it to hortus, again meaning a cultivated plot, not simply wildflowers or just a garden in the modern sense. So what the Gospel of John described, a garden of olives and vines at the place of crucifixion, is now echoed in the archaeological record. Of course, skeptics will raise questions, and one objection is about dating. Plants have not been radiocarbon dated yet, but the archaeological context places them in the pre-Hadrianic era, roughly the 1st century AD. We can't pinpoint it exactly to the year 33 AD, but while we can't say these seeds fell on the ground on the very day of the crucifixion, we can place them in the same century that Jesus lived. Another objection is this idea of contamination. Could later activity have introduced these traces? And archaeologists, the group of archaeologists that made this discovery, maintain that the material was discovered in a sealed strata, untouched by centuries of floors above, thereby greatly reducing the chance of intrusion. Moreover, if this were a random contamination, we would expect a diverse mix of plant types, not the concentrated profile of the grapes and olives, the key staples of a cultivated Judean garden. So while this is not courtroom level proof that John's description is exact, it's strong corroborating evidence that the gospel details about a garden aligns with the archaeological context beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, a context layered with quarry, burial, and cultivation dating back to the time of Christ.